Okay, let's call to order the January 17th Fire Board meeting. Would you stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? This goes better in person, I
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have the roll call? Roll call?
Oh, sorry, I thought that's what you said. Aldrich?
Here.
Beckman?
Here.
Fox?
Here.
Verplank?
Here.
Phelps?
Here.
And Miller?
Here.
And True was absent with notice. Please turn off your cell phones. Could we have approval of the agenda, please?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as it stands.
Support.
A motion by Phelps and support by Beckman. Please say aye.
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 All right, moving on. Could we have approval of the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from December 20th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Miller, second by Fox to approve the minutes as they stand. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And the minutes stand. Public comment? No public. Request for payment of the accounts payable.
I'll make a motion to pay payments of $109,094.91.
Second.
A motion by Phelps and second by Fox. We almost didn't pay the bills last time, Scott, because you weren't here. Is there any discussion, or are there questions? Peter's not here today. Okay, all those in, roll call vote, please.
Yes, ma'am. Phelps?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Verplank?
Yes,
And Miller?
Yes.
Passes 6-0, Madam Chair.
thank you. We won't have a financial report because the financial report guy isn't here. So, fire chief comments.
Okay, I was hoping to introduce our new full-time employee, Michelle Green. However, she is one of the people with just tested positive for COVID. So I can share with you that we had great applicants, many internal applicants. You'd have no problem filling a roster of full-time people here, very qualified people. Michelle comes to us from Overijssel Fire. Been in the fire service about 5 years, EMT, firefighter. I had at least 3 staff members recommend her at different points in time. Education-wise, she has a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration, a bachelor's degree in behavioral sciences, and associate's degree in pre-licensure registered nurse. Thorough knowledge of accounting practices, that's where she came from. Did their payroll and accounting at another, actually for King Corporation. So, human resource duties as well. So, fortunately, she couldn't join us via Zoom. So, I wanted to share that with you.
And she
Yes, I'm sorry.
She just knocked your socks off in the interview. She's an excellent interviewer, and if you need any help with your resume, talk to her, because she can write one.
Yeah. Most impressive. I can't wait till you can meet her. She's a great face for the department. What would you like to know and share for summary for year-end figures? As I kind of said earlier on, oddly enough, there were no house fires to report for 2021. Well, that's great. We've already had two starting structure fires this year already. So one of those things. We ended up with a 12% increase. That's something you'd like to know. A pretty big year. What is really significant is the overlapping calls, and some of you had experienced that just now with the call on top of one another. I am short 5 staff members, and we still have to cover this stuff, so it makes it very challenging. This has been one of the toughest times I've had this weekend with all the calls on positive and positive and positive. So what's interesting is we're up about 41% from 2020 in this category. So for you as public administrators, meeting those demands, which you have done, I think is something that's very commendable. So want to reach out to you on that, make sure you understand that. Our call response time is still stellar, you know, we're still under 6 minutes, just phenomenal. The rest of it is pretty much the matrix that normally occurs within the district. So you ended up with 964 calls for the year, which is up there. So, any questions about that? We also didn't want to overload you. There's a lot of data in here. You can see as much as you want to know or as little as you want to know. It's all in the interest of transparency. We have not even shared with you the way that now we can track training. What's great about the new online program is it allows us to track ISO requirements, MIOSHA requirements, EMS requirements, and Eric has shared that in spreadsheets that are just outstanding. We have not been able to do that before because we didn't have the program, the online program. So we'll keep that up. Just want to also share with you legal bills in case anybody ever had a question about where the bills are. Our attorney, our law firm, unfortunately commingles every expense into one invoice. So I have to separate that. Then in this case, Michelle posts that in a spreadsheet according to category. So that's kind of small print, but you get the idea.
Chief, is this information on the webpage, on the website?
We addressed that. I think you maybe asked that twice, and we've made sure it's on there now.
I just think sometimes you have conversations in public,
Yeah.
and they kind of ask, and, you know, you don't have this on you. I don't carry it around, I don't know, you know, and it's nice to say, well,
Absolutely.
check out our...
We can defer to that
Yeah.
webpage.
So all of the agenda packets are up there, and then the year-end, every month stats are on there, with the exception of the year-end. I just got those Friday from Eric and hadn't had a chance to upload them yet, but they'll be on there tomorrow morning when I put the minutes on, so.
Yeah. Chris has delegated that get it out of the way.
I'm wondering if, far be it for me to praise the City of Saugatuck administration, but they started after each council meeting. They have kind of a dashboard which makes it, basically would be the highlights,
What was approved and.
Yeah, and
Yep.
what, you know, what's important here, you know, that 962 calls, last year's number, whatever, but in real digestible, you know, sort of mini pieces, 4 or 5, which I think, I'm afraid when you give people this much, I'm happy to give people all the data they want, but when it's literally like a fire hose, when you get it this way, you can't absorb it and you probably can't find what you're looking for anyway, so, in addition to that, if there's a way to maybe agree, you know, whatever, this month's, you know, 5 featured facts or I don't know, but something that smooths it down, makes it okay.
Every month when Eric and I complete the data, I send it to the 3 managers and point out the highlights, the summary page, so refer to that. And I think in this last one I said refer to one of the pages on overlapping call as the importance. And the summary was born from Stacy. That was her idea, and it really helps because who wants to read all this stuff? You know, it's there if you want it. And really, what's important is: are we up in calls? Or are we down in calls? What's significant? Well, the overlapping calls are huge because that's all got to get covered. Those are the things I think worthy of your time and your constitute. So, Department of Fire Prevention year-end, we added this on some months ago. I thought that was important. We're always trying to increase the volume on that. This just gives you a profile of what was done for the year. And I believe on Michigan fatal fire statistics, that's where we're at, 107 people. It's actually a decrease from 2020, which is a good thing. The rest of it, this board is experiencing, you know, what gender dies more? More the males, the age brackets, what causes the fire. And this is really an essential tool for the fire service in Michigan to target, so we provided that. That includes my chief comments, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to unfinished business, could we talk about the lawsuit update?
Yeah, just kind of to memorialize what we need, what we're asking is for approval from the board to have, the lawyer recommended to have the fire board chair sign the identification agreement. I have it here. Actually, it is signed by the township, and it's just waiting signature for the fire board. So it's all been approved by township, and we just are asking for a motion to have the fire board chair sign it.
Jeff's gone over this.
Jeff drafted it in conjunction with township attorney.
And it says what we want it to say.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the signatures in the township are right there.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the indemnification agreement and agree for the fire board chair to sign that.
I'll make the motion.
I'll support it.
Okay, motion by Phelps and support by Blackman. Did you get the motion for this?
Yeah, you wanna I don't know, you wanna read the whole thing, or I can type it in either way,
It looks
whatever.
good.
Yes, so I have the motion.
Okay, all right.
And then,
Is there any discussion? Okay, so we have a roll call vote, please.
Phelps,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Verplank,
Yes,
and Miller.
Yes.
Passes 6-0, Madam Chair.
thank you. All right, moving on to special events. We had a parade safety committee meeting a couple of times this month. Dan's been working on it. So, Dan, Greg, you want to give a report?
Dan, sir?
Well, it's there in front of you, that basically captures most of the output, or all of the output, I would guess, of the first meeting. And that first meeting included the people whose signature or names are on the end of the report, including Steve Kent from Douglas, and Chief, and Mike Betts, and Rod, what's Rod's last name?
Flagstraw. Rob Flagstraw?
Yeah,
Jeffrey
Flagstraw, the sheriff's deputy for Saugatuck. And then in the second meeting, Brett Ensfield was there and endorsed what was there. So it's pretty straightforward, but I think it's particularly as it gets to the procedures recommended, that there be a whatever we call it, risk mitigation consultation between the community safety, public safety resources. So in the case of Saugatuck, the sheriff's office and the fire district, or in the case of Douglas Police and the fire district, that consultation meeting would be in response to the city alerting the public safety resources that a parade was planned or was being, a permit was being sought by some private group or whatever. The meeting would take place amongst all of the stakeholders, including the DPW people in the city, the potentially even the public schools, city administration, whatever. And in that meeting, the goal would be to go through the plan, what the organizers plan for the parade, and then probably negotiate between the parties who's going to provide what, when, for the day of the parade and the preparation for the parade. And that's going to get signed off on by everyone in the group, so the jurisdiction as well as the fire district, police department, whatever. And that agreement, written agreement, will be the basis for the public safety functions, saying to the city, we endorse the parade based on these agreements. Point being that if day of the parade shows up and one or more parties are not fulfilling their end of the deal, there's no mistaking who's accepting responsibility for that failure. It won't be, oh, we thought, no, it's written down here, you're going to have trucks and whatever. Part of this, obviously, it owes to the Waukesha tragedy, but providing that level of area protection really is entirely beyond the scope of any one of those participants, beyond the scope of the fire district, beyond the scope of the police operations, and it's beyond the scope of the cities to do by themselves. So no, it literally has to be a multi-organizational plan, and it's got to be cast in stone so that there's no mistake. You know, that it's not at all crazy to think, should something horrible like this happen, the vultures will gather. Who was responsible for this? And if you think either one of these cities is not going to say, as things exist right now, well, the fire department signed off on the parade permit, and they're supposed to be in charge of community risk reduction, over to you guys. And what do we say? So this is designed to get what is basically a loose kind of handshake, catch-as-catch-can kind of situation into something resembling a reasonable format, not just for liability, but simply to gather and position resources from multiple parties, each of whom are, control things that we don't control or what have you. And in particular, as it relates to the fire district, the chief has made the point several times, and it's a worthwhile point. In the case of blocking streets or using fire equipment to block streets, that equipment obviously can have to go at a moment's notice, which will then create a nightmare getting equipment out of there. It also leaves whatever they were protecting wide open. So you can make a strong argument, I think, that the fire district's resources should not be the primary resources. Ideally you could use school buses, which aren't in use, normal parade times, Halloween and 4th of July being the two that everybody's most worried about. And DPW equipment, same deal, not in use during normal parade times. So you can get a lot of equipment that doesn't involve anything coming out of here, although, stuff will come out of here based on what those agreements are. They also focus in here, there's a number of things, but one of them has to do with cutting the length of parades, particularly the non-A parades, not 4th of July and not Halloween. The pet parade, even and this would be the subject of these sorts of meetings I'm talking about, where you go on a pet parade, you go, really, could that not be done within a park, entirely within a park? Do they really need to walk down the streets? So that kind of pushback can happen in that meeting and that kind of negotiation. And if there is going to be, we talked about ideally, in the case of Saugatuck, the small parades, Veterans Day, is the one I think of automatically. But ideally, all of those B-level parades would follow exactly the same route, which would be basically from the bank parking lot to your house. That's it. because the length of the parade influences the number of resources involved, adds to the exposure, makes it just exponentially difficult. You know, that's acceptable for a plan for 4th of July or for the Halloween parade that goes all the way through Douglas. And in that regard, as to I mean, I realize I kind of love the township out of this, but you guys don't do a lot of parades, so. But in the case of the two cities, Douglas is, I would say, far ahead of Saugatuck in terms of the level of thought and the level of planning and the quantity and coordination of resources put in place. And so Saugatuck needs to be brought into line on this stuff. Nobody wants to be answering those questions after something like this happens with, well, geez, we never even thought about that. I mean, that arguably you could have gotten away with that 3 months ago, not after what happened in Waukesha. Threats change, and the response to the threat has to change. So I was going to say, I haven't run this by you, but as a next development on this document, I think getting the boundaries of some sort of form that tries to, you know, put into boxes what will be covered in that meeting, and so therefore what will be the character of the output of that meeting to the jurisdiction. So I'm happy to work on that to get there. So anyway.
Okay, and we've made several recommendations to the city, like the 4th of July parade starting at 10 o'clock in the morning instead of at 1. Clearing the parade route so there's no cars parked on the parade route. Using Douglas's barricades to keep the crowd off the street, not allowing any candy to be thrown. If you want to hand out candy, you can walk down the street and hand it to people, but you cannot throw candy anymore. That's just a horrible problem for people driving in the parade, because
That was the scariest part.
especially in the trucks, you can't see kids in front of you, and you never know when they're going to dart from between two cars. So it would make for a much safer parade route, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's much easier to control traffic that's right on the street than it is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I know that's a huge change for the 4th of July parade, but I think the police really recommend it. And
It also helps with preparation.
Yeah.
You can do overnight,
yeah,
put things in place overnight for a 10 o'clock that you really can't put into place
That would
until 10 o'clock for a noon parade, so it'd be a big help.
yeah. So we have several recommendations that we're making about parade protocol and throwing candies. Like
I was
that's
surprised
just-
the last parade that they were throwing candy,
Yeah,
the Christmas parade.
yeah.
I was surprised they were throwing candy.
Do they still do the art on the street thing too?
Oh, yeah, and that was gonna be a terrible thing in 2020, because the 4th of July was actually on Saturday.
Well, I mean, that street should be blocked off then too, because you got all those vendors in the street. And to me, it's just a stationary parade.
Right.
You almost need to follow the same
Yes.
guidelines here.
And part of the deal, and it's laced in here a couple of times, is that the cities, jurisdictions, are responsible for issuing or not issuing the parade permit. The fire district doesn't issue parade permits. We don't control that geography, and I think there's been a tendency, and I'll again get Saugatuck on it because I know of it, a tendency to think that on any parade, the security aspect's all of the fire district. That's not our deal. From the city.
Police and fire, that's their problem.
Yeah, and by all means, if something happened, that would be their go-to. And that's not accurate, it's not right, it's not fair. They need to accept the responsibility, which involves money, among other things. Money to pay DPW employees to drive trucks on their off day, whatever it takes, but it's gonna cost money. It costs the fire district money, it costs police money. So
So these are public safety recommendations, it's the Public Safety Committee.
Can I offer some comments?
Yes.
So this whole idea was kind of born out of necessity. We saw through the community risk reduction process some voids. And this was before Wisconsin happened. And it became problematic. We knew we need something more robust. Wooden barricades are not going to stop cars. And we had to look at this differently. So I developed an incident action plan. And then Dan took it even further and developed this mitigation plan. This is all about pre-planning, who's doing what. And we had a couple of parades where the expectation was, oh, the fire department is providing barricades. We have 8 barricades that are owned by MDOT. We don't have that ability. So again, you know, you have those 3-tier barricades, and the premise was that's not going to really do anything. So we had done some research on it and made some recommendations. We identified the problem, offered solutions, real solutions, and it was, Dan put this into a format that is, you know, easy to decipher. The resources are there, but it's collaboration. You have to reach out to each other jurisdiction to get those resources, including the school. So there's lots of possibilities here until they can buy barriers, so to speak, water-filled barriers, whatever that is. So Jane's part of this ad hoc committee, and myself, Captain Betts is my alternate on special events. So this really was a cross policy for recommendation for parades and special events. Because, you know, we talked about, I have to be careful because this is all recorded. I had to talk about even a stationary location, a park where somebody could drive into it. And we identified that years ago under the prior administration in Saugus City, and he was most receptive. I wanted concrete barriers there, well, they didn't have them at the time, so we put trucks there. Again, I can't take trucks and tie them up, so it's not really fair to us. So then you loop in, well, you've got dump trucks right here. You've got school buses just sitting there. So really it's just thinking out of the box. This is not that difficult. What I like with what Jane and Dan did was put it in a presentable format, and now we can just present it to Saugus City, because everyone, they want this to be seamless. You go to a parade, you don't have to worry about security. Well, when you have 1 or 2 police officers show up and you've got 15 intersections to control, who's going to do that? How are we going to do that? Have we done our due diligence? So, analyzing this, we came up with solutions. So, maps will be developed. That's in the hands of Scott Herbert. Once those maps are developed for a Type A, Type B parade route, identified by Dan, then we can decide what are we going to control, and what are we going to control it with, what do we need, how do we fund it, and ideas were suggested on all that. So, that's what I wanted to share with you.
Does the thing that blocks the intersection have to be a giant, like school bus? Can it be just cars parked? Or?
Yeah, it can be. And I remember years ago, we had volunteers that would park their cars there. Here was the problem. They didn't show up, or they disappeared and we couldn't move the cars.
There you go.
So we would have 12 volunteers, so that kind of just kind of lost its, you know, luster.
I'd also expect that, I mean, 4th of July will be the first 4th of July, obviously, parade since the Waukesha thing. There are going to be questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People are going to say, you know, I would, if I was taking my 2 granddaughters, and I see that, you know, that pick your street is wide open with, you know, traffic movement, I'd go, hey, wait, you know.
Well, you'd think it'd be easier in Saugatuck because we're a little bit on an island. You can close off the 2 routes going in. That's not gonna stop some nut sleeping in his car at night, but you could almost close it off while the parade's going on, instead of closing all of them. You know what I'm saying?
We just have to close the cross streets, you know, Mason
I guess they can get
Yeah,
into
we have to cross
Maple
that,
and
you
all
know,
that
so
other
nobody
stuff.
ramps up to speed and all that sort of thing.
Actually, Brett Edsfield mentioned that that's another advantage of the earlier start time. He said that never even occurred to me, but he said, for security purposes, they're being able to be in the area early, when basically nobody should be there, helps them identify people who should not be there, and look like they're a little sketchy or whatever, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, I think that makes common sense for the store owners too.
Yeah,
It's a pain in the ass to have a parade going by.
Right.
And you're not getting customers at 1 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon,
That's correct.
where you make money. I mean, do it at 10 when the people aren't there yet, so.
Yeah, it's just a big deal to switch a parade time,
Yeah.
but I'm sure we can do that, and there hasn't been one for a while, so it'll be easier to switch the time.
It was a great, go
Oh,
on.
sorry, Greg.
Go on, go on, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, can people just walk around with these guns that, you know, people are doing these things? I mean, is
Yeah.
there a fear of
Yeah.
more of that versus the traffic, or the cars plowing, or are you looking at both, or like shooters and things like that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, are people allowed to walk around with that?
Not,
Michigan's
not
open,
shown, yeah.
Michigan's open, Karen.
they're not.
I mean, the big ones?
They're not gonna allow that at a parade. I mean,
Okay,
it's something-
you can stop that, right? Or if somebody comes in like that?
Yeah, that's one of the things that have been watched, particularly at, the big parade, Halloween parade, is there's people positioned all over. So
Okay.
I can't really say any more than that.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. The Blue Star Highway and Old Allegan Road Traffic Study Report.
Stacy, do you wanna intro this?
Well, you can go ahead. You're better.
No, my hat is off to Sugden Township. This is another example of community risk reduction. And Township asked for the road commission to commission a study. Sugden City chimed in about Lake Street and Blue Star. It's no secret the problems we're having at Old Allegan and Blue Star. What do we do with it? And there's some opinions. It should be no secret to anybody that one of the considerations is a cul-de-sac. Spending time in Europe and all that, I love cul-de-sacs. I'm not so sure
mean
everyone...
It's a roundabout.
Roundabout. I call them cul-de-sacs and they're really roundabouts. I don't know how receptive people would be to a roundabout here. Plus, you've got to build it all up. Huh?
Get over it.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere you go
They work.
now, I travel a lot, they're popping up everywhere.
Right. I know.
Well, there's one in South Haven.
Yeah.
And on the way to Bangor, and it certainly is something that all the engineers recommend because it's proven to work. So, if I'm wrong on this, Stacy, chime in here, as I understand this is the recommendation by the firm that did the traffic analysis was, you can put in the roundabout, you can grant fund it because it's very expensive, and I think it's a 4 to 5 year timeline. So, there's data, we have data, they have data. I'll get back to that. The other alternative, and it's recommended, if you look at page, it's kind of hard to read this, page 78 of 80, at the bottom, the report says, the signal would provide additional safety measure for all road users. Given these factors, HRC, the company that did the report, recommends installing a traffic signal at this intersection. They do prefer the roundabout, but the road commission's not gonna pay for that. They want to grant it out. That's 4 to 5 years. When I was asked to speak at the township meeting last Wednesday on this subject, I said, be careful about waiting till we kill enough people to do something. I'm not a traffic engineer. That was also mentioned that the township was told traffic accidents can increase from traffic signals. I'm not criticizing that comment or anything. I don't understand that. I can tell you Center Street and Blue Star, we don't have high accident rate. 64th and Blue Star, that didn't have a traffic light till 2008. So in 22 years, there's been 12 accidents down there. In 22 years, there's been 24 here. There's far more distractions down there with 5 businesses. Kind of hard to compare. Here you've got a high-speed curve, blind spots. My personal feeling is we should not be waiting until we kill somebody to do something. And if you can put in traffic lights for $250,000, maybe you ought to consider doing that. And go for the grant. So in 5 years, if you put in a roundabout, it's all right, $50,000 a year. I'm not trying to dismiss that. However, I think the public has made it clear they want something done. If neither one of those options come to fruition, a third option at the very least would be increase the signage from 24 to 36 inch. Put flashing lights, solar powered lights. Sign below that, it's in the report, oncoming traffic does not stop. And advanced stop warning signs, east and west. That's a bare minimum. Even do that now until you can put in the traffic signals if the township decides. My understanding is Elgin County Road Commission will not fund it. So the township's on their own for, I believe, $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a summary of the report.
We did approve a few meetings ago, the flashing speed signs, and those are held up. We can't get things anymore, I guess, so I don't know, where they are. We thought that might help some.
Good.
You know, the thing with the roundabout at that area, Brenda was telling me that it would really, it takes a lot of room for that, and it'd almost go to our little park there, that Riverside Park, and it'd mess up that bike path, that bridge we got there too. So I think the township's kind of leaning towards the light right now, but we're gonna have to, you know, work it out, so.
It's
I'll let
a
you
lot of
know.
real estate, because you have to
Yeah.
enter the roundabout on a level plane. Well,
Yeah.
Old Allegan is like this.
Yeah, yeah.
All that has to be raised.
Uh-huh.
Did they ever think about doing a roundabout at a different location to slow traffic down and still put a damn light there?
We did talk about that, but.
Because
you know.
where the dune screw ride is, and those
I think that-
6 corners, is asinine.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room there.
Yeah, if somebody wanted to do a roundabout down there, because that's a very precarious intersection, because of the angle of approach you can't see. The data doesn't support that at all.
No.
And
Well, the data supports Michigan lefts too, but we're the only state in the nation that has them.
And then I don't know what's gonna happen, I think they wanna do a traffic light
Whatever the hell those are.
at Lake and Blue Star. So, you know, I see this as a big advancement in analyzing this. Again, I like roundabouts,
Mhm.
but
Well, once
They're putting
again,
up-
if there's a light at Lake and Blue Star, it will at least slow some traffic down and give some spacing, I think.
I kind of think you're right, you know, if they put one there and then a half mile away, that seems like a little overkill, doesn't it? Or, I mean, maybe just one?
I don't know, when they come out of the 35-mile zone,
Mhm.
just north of the bridge, they're coming 50, 55 at Old Allegan Road.
Mhm.
That's one of the problems.
Well,
They-
how many rear-end accidents do we have at Lake now when people turn into Douglas because you pull up and people are coming around the corner and they start edging and stop and the guy,
At Lake, yeah.
hit them. I mean, there's a lot of those.
Right.
I'm guilty.
Yeah.
My son's guilty. I just tapped her.
Runs in the family, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go back to the $250,000 is not that much money for someone's life.
Right, yeah,
And I hate to hear that all the time,
Yeah.
I've heard that before, well, it costs too much.
Mhm.
I would question that cost too, or I'd like to have somebody look into it more, only because Douglas just replaced the one at Center Street for, I wanna say it was like 45 or 48,000 is what they spent, and that included a new controller, the cable across the road, everything. And the only difference here is you probably gotta set poles and bring in power, but if that costs another 200,000, then consumers, obviously, that's something
Yeah.
going.
Oh.
But, you know, so I would, it'd definitely be interesting to see, get a couple quotes on it, cause that 250 sounds awfully high to me.
Okay, cool.
But township at least is on it, you know?
We are
Instead
on
of
it.
being mutes on it, it's something
Been
that,
discussed.
you know, I think the
We're on
fire board
everything.
was part of bringing that, you know, to being looked at, so.
Okay, all set. So now we wanna do the performance review. This is a closed, or you have to ask if you want to see a closed session, Greg.
Yeah, we can do closed session, there's nobody here.
Do you want Chris to leave, or do you want him to be?
He doesn't have to leave. No, I'm good with it.
All right. So this part we
Well,
will
we might
do.
wanna,
Turn the
You want it
recording off.
closed, like, I can shut the cameras off?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
That goes on.
and record it.
Yep.
And then we may want to go into closed session without you, Greg, to discuss salary.
Oh, okay.
But we can
Yep.
have an opening,
But-
but not yet. We'll have an opening discussion about your performance.
Did you want me to open this?
Yeah,
Do I need to make a motion to go into closed session?
we're not going into closed
Oh.
session just, well, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah, yeah,
You
okay.
turned off the tape.
All right,
So,
yeah.
yes,
I
I can
make
take
a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Beckman and a second by Fox to go into closed session. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. All right, Beckman?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yeah.
Verplank?
Yes,
Phelps?
Yes.
And Miller?
Yes,
we are now in closed session.
I'll move to leave closed session.
I'll support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, I just told them to come back.
Still going to 101.
I was gonna bring champagne, but I thought, no, don't.
Hmm?
Don't hex it.
You what?
I was gonna bring champagne, but don't hex it.
That's another thing you wouldn't want to explain.
No. What do you do with alcohol? It's a
I
fire
will.
burn.
What do you mean? Are you kidding me? That's no.
We heard the old stories
Geez.
of what went on here way in the day.
We had a bar in the back barn.
Oh my God, in gallon jugs. Come on, kids.
Times were different.
Yeah, they were.
Same in the military. Officers' clubs in the military, oh my God, the stuff went on there,
Oh, yeah.
went on today, people, there'd be nothing but dead bodies, dead careers everywhere. And
Yeah,
not to be
these-
started on the ad agency business.
Used to get pretty crazy.
How about mental health? What are they doing down there? Playing cards?
They went on a call.
I was talking to the head on her.
I might.
It's 24/7/365.
Mhm.
We go on,
Nothing.
when I worked for the old company, you know, corporate bullshit, we'd go on vacation and my boss would still call me. He knew I wasn't here. My wife always said, "You're not a doctor, you sell sandpaper, you can wait till you get
Yeah,
home."
seriously.
Are we going back into open session then?
We are.
Okay, all right, then, okay.
Well, you wouldn't believe the emergency here.
We are in.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody will make a motion to go into open session?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay. I will take a motion
Alright.
of the chief's salary for the next year.
I will make the motion to increase the chief's salary to, $101,000.
Second.
We have a
Does
roll
that seem
call.
random?
I have a motion by Phelps and a second by Fox. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Any discussion at all?
Oh, any discussion? I'm sorry.
Effective, what, would that go back to July 1st? of
No, that
20?
goes from this day forward.
Okay.
The only thing I would say, that is obviously a pretty big increase, but it's in recognition of data points from neighboring communities and what they pay their chiefs for similar work, as well as your experience, qualifications, and certifications that justify the amount, as well as the fact that we know that there's just a large demand for these services. So that is the market rate, basically, we feel. So it feels very much justified.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody
Well
else?
said, Aaron.
Thank you.
I added that to the motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. So I'll just reread what I added to it. So motion by Phelps, second by Fox, to increase the chief's salary to $101,000 effective immediately after careful review of chief's qualification and studying the neighboring communities.
I would add a third point to that list,
Yep,
demonstrated performance.
yep,
Qualifications, demonstrated performance, and whatever the last one is. That's all right.
yep. Got it. Okay. All right, now for the roll call. Phelps?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Verplank?
Yes.
And Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Board. I'm very, very grateful for the recognition and the substantial increase. Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Yes.
If I fall on the floor, please. Thank you.
The defibrillators.
Chest compression thing you got here coming up.
I don't see any cleanup. Don't try, okay? Okay, moving on, accounts payable policy.
I thought this was very important because at one point we thought we were going to cancel this meeting because of the impact of the COVID and staffing. The problem was this: how do we pay the bills? Because you guys have to approve that before Peter can pay it. So talking with Peter, we can't be the first department that that's run into. And Peter says, well, we have a policy that allows us to do that. So I had, yes,
In the city.
in the city, the city. So he asked, I said, can we see that policy? Because commonly we share policies, why reinvent the wheel? And I got permission to get that policy. So I merely took their policy and adopted it to our, our language. So that's where the policy came from, as well as the second policy, which is really electronic transfer of funds. And Peter really wanted that a long time ago. So these two policies are merely a formality that allows, like, for example, if you didn't meet tonight, how would Peter do the wages? We would incur interest cost on some credit card expenditures. As you know, we use Amazon quite a bit. Utility bills. So this allows you the ability, and other municipalities do it as well, allows you the ability to, they get paid, and then we would bring them forth at the next meeting. And the electronic fund transfer policy is what it implies. It allows Peter to transfer funds once I approve that, and I approve all the bills. There are some exceptions. Sometimes when I'm not around or Chris is involved in the project, he has the authority to approve some of those bills. I try to do it so I'm totally responsible for it, but there are times he does it. But it's always discussed, there's always a purchase order number, it's always agreed upon.
Okay, so, I'll take a motion.
I motion to approve resolution 2022-01 and 2022-02 as presented.
I'll support.
A motion by Aldrich and support by Beck. Is there any discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Aldrich?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Verplank?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
And Miller?
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, moving on to resolution, oh, we did that.
Funding.
Yeah, that's the two together, so it
Okay.
should be the funding thing, I believe.
Okay, we have a funding approval for another Lucas. Greg, you wanna?
I'll just do a brief introduction, Chris can chime in here. It is time for us to replace this critical life-saving device. It's on its 7th year, as I recall. And there's such a need for this device. The current unit, if the board does proceed to go ahead with this Lucas device, this would become a second due response unit, wouldn't be removed from service, it still works. But any electronic device has about a 5-year life expectancy. The first device, the public paid for. There were people writing checks, we had such a contribution towards that device. This second device was in honor of Chief John Block. And you had almost $3,000, I believe, in donations towards the device. We had it in the budget for that. So you do have it in the general fund, and Chris and I are requesting that you approve the purchase of a Lucas. If you'd like to see it, I can have it brought upstairs. It's just an automatic device. And it is just such a vital machine that it's one of the best inventions we've ever seen.
I know I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of it.
Yeah, I hope you never do
Right,
that.
yeah, you hope it grows dust on it.
Yeah.
The people walking today, they'll appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we even track all the responses in a spreadsheet on this machine.
I was curious.
All that data is available.
I was just curious about how many times you use it per year, per month.
I can send you that.
Yeah.
I obviously don't put that in a public meeting, but I can send it to you.
You might even have it.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make the motion to authorize the fire district staff to purchase Lucas 3 chest compression system, not to exceed the amount of $16,000.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Phelps and a second by Miller. Is there any discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Phelps?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Beckman?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
And Verplank?
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, thank
moving
you.
on. We have no correspondence, there's no public. Fire board comments, Stacy, you got anything?
Yeah, I wanted to let you know that the township has, decided to separate from our manager, Joe Fry. And we have decided to try a different direction and not hire a manager at this time. We have, someone that has shown a great interest in learning government, and he's very smart, and he actually has got a doctorate in philosophy. He's on our planning commission, our rural development committee. He's taken several courses. He also applied actually for the Saugus clerk job and was determined to be overqualified for that. So we're going to call him an operation manager. We're going to have a month-to-month agreement with him and see how it works out. And if he does, we may give him this management title, or we'll have to put it out there for bid. But so that's what's new at the township. Kurt?
Nope.
Oh, by the way, it's Daniel DeFranco. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I don't know if any of you know Daniel, but he's really exceptional. You probably know him from Phil's. He's a bartender. Kinda, yeah. You know Daniel? Yeah. He's a really personable young man, he's really nice.
I
so.
appreciate that you think I spend a lot of time.
I know you're in the bar, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I worked with Daniel, on
Oh,
the
that's it.
recycling committee,
Yeah.
and he's a great guy, he's really approachable, just really level-headed, and got along with him really well, so.
We really are
I'm really excited, I look
excited.
forward to it.
Yeah, we're excited, and he's willing to learn, you can, he's very receptive to suggestions, and, you know, so feel free to help. I mean, you know, if you see something that, you know, he's just great. He's-
Does he have to leave Phil's?
No, he's gonna stay on 1 night a week.
No, I'll just say thank you, Greg, and keep up the good work, and
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dan,
Amen.
Thank you.
Scott?
Job well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
All right, with that, we can adjourn.